The next game this evening is between Tigran Petrosian and our friend Bobby Fischer. Of course, this is Tigran Vartanovich Petrosian, the world champion, not Tigran L. Petrosian, the cheater. Well, Petrosian was born in Tbilisi, Georgia, to Armenian parents. Born June 17th, 1929, was Petrosian. He passed away August 13th, 1984, at the young age of 55. Though born in Georgia, he relocated to his homeland in Armenia, but eventually moved to Moscow, Russia. Now, Petrosian was an avid student of Aron Nimzovich, and his play was renowned for its virtually impenetrable defense and patient maneuvering. This combination of technique earned him the nickname Iron Tigran. His first major win was the championship of Georgia in 1945 when he was but 16 years of age. He won the 5th Soviet Junior Championship in 1946, scoring 14 out of 15. He won or came equal first in the championships of Armenia of 1946, 48, 74, 76, 1980. He won the Moscow Championship in 1951 and in 56 and 68 as well. He got the IM title in 51. He went on to win the Soviet Chess Championship outright in 1959, 61, 75, and also 69. He became a grandmaster in 1952 when he finished second place in the Stockholm Interzonal. That, of course, qualified him for the 1953 Candidates Tournament at Zurich. He was an 8-time candidate for the World Championship. Those were achieved in 53, 56, 59, 62, 71, 74, 77, and 1980. In 1962, he won the Curaçao Candidates Tournament, and he didn't lose a single game in that event. And of course, the following year, 1963, he earned the title World Champion, the 9th person to become world chess champion. He retained his title in 1966, defeating Spassky, and only relinquished the title in 69 also to Spassky. 2 major openings are named for him, the Petrosian variation of the King's Indian and the Petrosian system in the Queen's Indian. Tigran Petrosian. All right, now we're going to get a surprise in this game. Pawn to d4, and of course Bobby played knight f6, right? He always plays the King's Indian. Not today. Fischer with pawn d5, an extremely rare appearance of the d5 move by Bobby Fischer. So we get Zukertort's variation with knight f3, e6, and c4 transposes to the Queen's Gambit declined. Bishop e7, knight c3 is Cheruzik's variation. Knight f6 is the 3 knights variation. Don't ask me why they call it that. Bishop g5 is the modern variation. h6 hits the bishop, bishop h4, and Bobby Fischer castles. e3 is the neo-orthodox variation. b6 transposes to Tartakover's defense. Bishop d3 from Petrosian. Bishop b7. Kingside castles. Now queen's knight to d7. Rook c1. Pawn c5. Queen e2. D takes c4. Bishop takes the c4. Knight e4. Challenging the queen's knight here. After knight e4, bishop g3. Knight takes the bishop. H takes the knight. Queen c7 here. That gets a question mark. The bot calling for knight f6. My preferred move was c takes d4 here. I get a check mark there. a6 has been played several times as well, by the way, but that gets an inaccuracy. In this game, queen c7, and that is marked as a mistake by the annotator. King's rook to d1, that's marked inaccurate, with d5 being recommended. And of course, that puts the question to the E-man, doesn't it? But King's rook to d1, played by Petrosian, wanting to support that pawn, no doubt. Queen's rook to d8, and sure, getting the knight back to its optimal square first certainly would be recommended, and you can bring this over on the next turn. It comes with the added benefit of supporting the d5 square. But queen's rook to d8 from Fischer. Pawn d5 is played. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes the pawn. Bishop takes the knight. Pretty much had to since the knight was hitting our queen. Rook takes the bishop here. Now bishop f6. Queen's rook to the d1 square, forming a battery. Knight e5, inviting a trade. b3. And then, of course, knight takes knight next would be a good, but the bot wants that move right away. Play this right away, says the annotator. Instead, pawn to b3 from Petrosian, and knight takes the bishop here. Pawn takes the knight, queen c6. That marked inaccurate. The bot calling for king's rook to e8. I like just playing rook takes rook. Doesn't that keep things equal? I get a check mark, and then on pawn takes, we can play queen d6. Coming back, queen c6 was Bobby's choice, and pawn e4 also marked inaccurate, with knight e5 being recommended. Of course, knight e5 attacks the queen, and it also intends to play knight d7. For example, if we play queen e6, knight d7 can be played. It's that rook. e4, however, the move chosen by Tigran Petrosian. Queen e6 played nonetheless. Queen c2. Rook takes rook here. Bishop's pawn takes the rook, getting a nice central passed pawn. Queen d6 was played, inviting pawn to e5. Oh no, it's super attacked. You can't play pawn e5. Never mind, I've got two attackers. So queen a4 here. Rook a8 defends, and rook e1. Now threatening the fork because he's got two pieces supporting it. So bishop e5 precludes such an idea. Okay, attacking the rook might be in order here with bishop c3. Bobby playing a simple blockade with bishop e5. Queen a6, and that's marked inaccurate. I thought white might just trade here. Instead, queen a6. Queen c7 was played, and that's to prevent this queen from infiltrating. The point of queen a6 is to threaten queen b7, attacking the rook and undermining the defense of this pawn right here. And the point of queen c7 is to prevent such an idea. So queen c4, g5, rook d8 is superior. Get that rook on d8 centralized. g5 is played. Knight h2. The bot not caring for that much either, marking it inaccurate. Calling for queen a4. I preferred pawn a4. I wonder what I get here. A thumbs up. Knight h2, Petrosian's choice. Queen d7 prevents this knight from coming here and attacking this pawn. And the bishop, by the way. Queen now covers that square. So knight f3 hitting the bishop. Queen to d6, and by the way, queen c7 probably works just as well. But it doesn't much matter because the players were affable to a draw, and it was here that the draw was agreed to. So another pretty short game. Well, the other two weren't all that short. The other two were in the 40s. Let's look at the numbers. 95.2 accuracy for Petrosian, 93.4 for Fischer. So again, in the 90s. And scrolling down, 2850 single game rating assessment for Tigran Petrosian, 2750 for Bobby Fischer. This was back in 1959 when supposedly players couldn't play that strong. So another competitive game, both players playing the opening very well, both fighting in the middle game quite well, but Petrosian really had the better of the middle game, didn't he? Bobby more than happy to get out of there with a draw.